Hi everybody, we're trying something a little different today. I'm standing. I do not like to teach sitting down, and I realized that even when recording, I don't sit well. I got board markers. They're on the way, so hopefully the videos get better as I stand, as I talk, and as I have a board to write on. I know the dog did well, but I'm still giving this a try. Today's notes are on features of the humerus. Large bone of the upper arm goes from the socket of your shoulder down to where the olecranon process starts, your ulna. Big bone. Lots of features on it that have anatomical and physiological structure and function purposes. So we're going to start superiorly, also could be called proximally, closer to point of attachment with the head of the humerus. We talked about ball and socket joints and the fact that the motion of a ball and socket joint is round and round. It's the head of the humerus fitting into the glenoid cavity or glenoid fossa of the scapula that lets this happen. The glenoid isn't a deep structure, so the head of the humerus sits against it rather than in it. You have cartilage and ligaments to help keep the joint in place, but it's not a grip, it's a sit. And that's why your shoulder goes round and round and out to the side in many directions because of the structure of the ball and socket joint. The head of the humerus is round, it's the proximal end, it's the epiphysis of the bone modified to form the ball and socket joint. The joint itself is called the glenohumeral joint, glenoid cavity, and head of the humerus. Anatomical neck is sort of a piddly feature. It's a little groove right below the head, but where's your neck? Below your head. It's sort of where the epiphysis goes into the diaphysis. The surgical neck is even below that. This is not something in like the 15 and 1600s when we started picking at bones, when the ghoulies and ghosties weren't coming for you anymore for doing that. This wasn't an original feature of the bone, but became a name that was used once surgical repairs of fractures were more common. A friend of mine had surgery here. An athlete of mine a few years back had surgery here. My friend was a cross-country runner at Elizabeth Forward, so if you know the cross-country team, if you know distance kids, this is an easy thought. He was at a retreat at Jumonville, which is a Christian retreat center, and he decided he was going to climb a tree and scare his counselor and jump down. But the counselor was slow getting there. He sat in the tree for a really long time. His foot got wedged, and when he thought he was jumping out of the tree to scare them, his foot stayed there, and he dangled, and he fell directly on his arm and then whacked his head on the ground. He said he woke up a day later in the hospital with a concussion and a surgically repaired humerus. The surgical neck is right about here, and it's a really tough place to cast because of mobility of the shoulder. It's easier to put a plate in and to repair it surgically. The plate is weird, though. My athlete who had the shoulder repair was in a classroom at York and was ninja kicking with his hands on the desks and his feet going up, and he actually flipped himself up and over and backward, and the ambulance came. And I thought, oh no, that has to be one of my kids. And they wheeled him down the hall past my room. And Mr. Thompson, the old principal, was walking with him. And I said, oh no, to him. And he just laughed. And he went to the hospital and got his arm put back together. He said it was crazy because of the metal in his arm. I was with him. He was a track statistician that year because he couldn't run. And I was with him the first time he got cold. He said it was the craziest feeling because the hardware in his arm was metal, and it got cold before his skin did, so his arm was colder on the inside than the outside. Think about that. You don't really think of that, because a lot of times metal is just a pin or two, but his was a plate. He really did a nice number on that, but that's why that spot is called the surgical neck. Behind, on the outside, lateral arm, are the tubercles. Tubercle is bump, like tuber is a tater. A tubercle is a bump, and you have something called the intertubercular groove. Tubercle, intertubercular, between. It's where the biceps tendon sits. You have tendons of the muscles of your arm that sit in it and let those work normally. Major features? Not really. They're processes. They're for muscle attachment. The olecranon fossa, hang on, gotta scroll down. Fossa is a dent. It's also those things in Madagascar, the fossa, the Chase King Julian. Seriously, watch the movie. You're home. It's usually where another bone fits into a dent. The glenoid fossa of your shoulder. The fossae, that's plural fossa, on your humerus are pretty cool. Because on the back, you have an olecranon fossa, where the olecranon process fits. Where's my elbow? Oh, it's gone. It went into the olecranon fossa. On the front, I have a coronoid fossa on the front, so when I go this way, the coronoid process of my ulna fits in there. You don't really see this one. So those are the two dents. We'll talk more about the processes on the ulna next time. The capitulum and the trochlea are fancy words for condyles. Capitulum means head. Capit is head, like decapitate. We'll talk about muscles of the neck that are capitis. And trochlea is a pulley. So in your notes, I was always like, what's up with these? This is bonus content. This wasn't in the original notes, but I like it because it shows the structures of your distal far end of the humerus. You got the trochlea, which is the groove. It is like the bottom of a pulley. You've got the capitulum, which is round. Heads of bones, like the head of the humerus, are round. And it also shows your epicondyles. Condyles form joints. That's what the capitulum and the trochlea do. And your epicondyles are processes. They're for muscle attachment. I think that this page with the capitulum and trochlea are way nicer to show how these work. And it shows your pulley too. One second. There we go. Shows the pulley too. We'll talk more about the structure of the ulna and radius and how it relates to this pulley when we get into those next lecture. It's pretty cool because basically the way the capitulum is set up, the bottom of the head is to the side, and the way the trochlea fits beside it, your ulna is basically like a wrench around the bottom of your humerus, and it's able to move freely and rotate. I do like the pulley picture. It wasn't in the class notes. Also, when you look to the axial skeleton notes later, I did put in a picture of a link to a Turkish saddle. We talked about the sella turcica. You got a link to that now. But there you go, with hopefully a better understanding of capitulum and trochlea than I was giving before. Shorter lecture than yesterday. Unfortunately, no guest star today. But that's features of the humerus. Have a great day.